How's it going, people of the DC Universe? Welcome to my first episode, and I'm going to call it the first because I do plan on doing quite a few more of these because there is so much to talk about, and that's the first episode in the discussion series of DCU Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. So I posted to my community tab, similar to the Batman discussion series. Let me know what you think. Do you have any ideas? Do you want to pick my brain for any theories, where things could go? And that is exactly what this is about. So there's all kinds of things to discuss with everything that's already been revealed, from Superman Legacy, Batman the Brave and the Bold with Damian Wayne coming in, things like the Authority, how that could impact the overall DC Universe and maybe some Kingdom Come influences there, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, of course, other things like Swamp Thing and Lanterns, that's really caught my eye. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Very similar format to my previous discussion series on the channel. If you want to ask more questions, please do so down in the comments below. Not only expand on what we've talked about in today's first episode, but also leave some of your own questions so I can screenshot some of them for episode 2 whenever that releases. I do recommend checking out my previous video, and this isn't just like a plug, but honestly, there's so many details that I compiled that weren't actually revealed in James Gunn's DC Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters video, and some of them are pretty significant, so do check it out. Alright, so question number 1 is from Chris L saying, I'm tempted to believe the Authority could lead to the Kingdom Come storyline, which also featured righteous heroes taking justice into their own hands, crossing lines. Gunn continuously teased the Kingdom Come art when he took over, just a thought of the bigger picture of Gods and Monsters. This is something I really do mimic with my own opinion here as well. Something that has been teased even before we got this official Chapter 1 reveal of Gods and Monsters, all of the details on Superman Legacy, Waller, Creature Commandos, the Authority, Swamp Thing, Batman, the Brave and the Bold, and everything like that, is that Kingdom Come art was continuously advertised. Now, a little bit of backstory there, you couldn't really have too much conviction with whatever theory you had, because Kingdom Come art with all the DC heroes there is a great piece of artwork for DC characters to have as your Mastodon or Twitter profile picture or profile ban or whatever have you. So it could have just been that. But now that we're hearing about the Authority being involved in this new universe, I do believe that there will be a slight loose adaptation of Kingdom Come in certain ways. Now, Kingdom Come isn't obviously going to be straight up adapted. Just like, for example, from the top of my head, the Batman had many different adaptations. For example, Batman Ego, The Long Halloween, Batman Year One, and several others that were loosely put in there as well. Yet it wasn't a straight up rip from any comic. So it's the same thing to be expected here. And in Kingdom Come, obviously it's this DC Elseworld story, and where the world isn't exactly at the state it was at the peak of the Justice League, having this good impact, and most heroes, if you will, aspiring to kind of be like, oh, look at how Superman does things, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Batman. It even got to the point of where Superman went into retirement because he was, I wouldn't say the word apathetic with humanity, but it got to that point of where these new heroes, if you even want to call them that, more like anti-heroes, more like the Authority that James Gunn is bringing in, of which is described as basically just doing anything necessary to get the job done. A lot of people you may have already heard are kind of referencing this to maybe being something likened to that of DC's The Boys, that kind of vibe. And because this new hero, if you will, Magog, got such strong support and has basically no issues with killing. He kills the Joker, and Superman, granted that he's not a big fan of the Joker, especially in this story. It's kind of like, well, everyone's okay with this way of conducting yourself as a superhero, just killing, and it's basically not a great time. So, obviously, that's not going to happen. Superman is much, much, much older in Kingdom Come. There's a lot different with that climate, but you can still transfer aspects of that story into this new DC universe. One of the biggest differences obviously being that Superman is reportedly, as James Gunn said himself, quite in his younger years. It's not an origin. However, with Chris L wondering about the Kingdom Come teases that we've had, or maybe, just maybe, how we can have actual Kingdom Come influences in the story, with the Authority being reminiscent of these new age heroes being a lot more kind of like, do I look like I give a crap with the way I'm handling this villain, and not really doing it with a no-kill rule, just doing whatever, true vigilante all-out mode to get the job done. That could be reminiscent of the climate in Kingdom Come. It's just the opposite might be done here with, whereas Superman returns in that story in Kingdom Come to try and be that beacon of hope, to try and set a good example for this new climate of very rough new anti-heroes, if you will, who have taken the world by storm and who do not remotely reflect the heroes of old. With Superman being a bit of a noob in this world, and again, I know I keep saying it's not an origin story, so he's been out there. I guess he's been saving submarines and he's been even facing metahumans already, but nobody as big as Bizarro, Brainiac, Zod, or anything like that. He hasn't quite had the influence on the world yet, but maybe with Superman Legacy kicking off, you have some Kingdom Come elements in there with what I've already aforementioned, but as Superman gets more and more popular in the world, he could become that beacon of hope in a bit of an age reversal here in the first place for a world that's only known certain heroes already, because James Gunn has said, and I've been saying this the whole time, this new DCU will start hitting the ground running. It's not going to be an origin. There's already going to be heroes out there who have been active for a while. A very good example of that is Batman. He's already got Damian Wayne, and we're going to talk about that in this video. There's going to be other heroes, obviously, really big popular ones, lanterns and whatnot, who haven't just popped on the ring for the first time. But let's just say they haven't had the beacon of hope that is Superman, and they haven't had the best examples to lead by. I'm not saying Batman's a terrible example or anything, but what I'm trying to say is that in maybe, even if it's just a loose way, the authority could reflect that of the Kingdom Come world kind of vibe of heroes. Maybe there has been some good upstanding heroes, but Superman is on the rise in Superman Legacy, and as he rises and rises up, especially as Chapter 1 unfolds, even into well after the Superman Legacy movie, well, that's where they could try and maybe lead by example, truly, like with a Justice League, because that's the interesting thing about this universe. Superman's young, the very quote being, he's working, he's a reporter, he's at the Daily Planet. Again, we are coming into a world where superheroes exist and have existed. So does that mean Batman might be a couple of years older than Superman? Yes, it could be. So again, that kind of sets the stage for you. So I know I've rambled a bit there, but I do think the Kingdom Come little teases that we've had through the artwork were perhaps more than just about having a cool Twitter background profile picture that James Gunn has had, and it will kind of attribute itself to a little bit of the stage of this new DC universe, but it's just not going to be a straight up adaptation, but rather I suspect maybe a nice segue into how there's heroes out there, maybe some better than others who are doing a good job, but there's a lot out there who just maybe are a bit way too anti-hero-esque. Superman is getting more and more popular, but he's quite young, he's not even into his 30s yet, and in that kind of Kingdom Come reversal, yet other ways being very similar, it carves out the next 8 to 10 years with trying to set a good example, but also could lead to some, face-offs as well. Like, what if we actually have Superman brushing up against members of the authority who just, like, who are you, man? Like, I don't care about you. Maybe they've heard of Metropolis's Superman, but there's no proper respect there. And this could be a good way for Clark to actually earn his name, the symbol of hope and the symbol hero even that other heroes can look up to. But let me know what you think of that. I'm sure I'm probably forgetting to add more expansion of Kingdom Come influences in there. The title Gods and Monsters could lean into that a little bit. I do think it's a multifaceted title, like, because you can have, yes, literal gods like Superman and other godlike DC heroes, and monsters kind of maybe being like the Swamp Thing side of things, even though my poor little swampy boy shouldn't be viewed as a straight up monster. But again, like, it means so many things in this multifaceted title. Monsters could also mean and be symbolic of that of the heroes, some of the heroes maybe like the Authority, who might do some pretty monstrous things, and that could be what we're getting into a little bit with some projects that we'll see trickled throughout the first chapter. So up next is from Mr. V, and he asked, do you think that Red Hood would already exist in this universe? If Damian is Robin, that would mean Jason would have had to have been Robin already. So do you think he would have died and we will see an Under the Red Hood based film, or will James Gunn skip all of that and have Jason already established as the Red Hood? Also, just wanted to say I'm a long-time watcher and appreciate what you do for this community to a fruitful 2023. Thank you so much, man. So obviously with this one, I can't say for sure, like that's the whole point of this series. You know, sometimes I get someone saying, so you don't actually know, and I'm just like, I say in the first 10 seconds of these videos, it's a discussion series. But obviously another part of this video series is my gut instinct and where I really do think it could go, sometimes more confident than other times. Now with this Red Hood, I do think there is a strong possibility that he could exist. It's just what version of him, because Jason goes from Jason Todd Robin to dead for quite a period of years sometimes to then resurfacing as Red Hood. So one thing we do know is that in the Brave and the Bold movie, we're getting with this new DCU Batman with his son Damian, who Batman didn't know existed in the first 8 to 10 years of Damian's life. So that doesn't actually mean, by the way, with that wording that Damian's coming in at 8 to 10 years old. It just means that for the first 8 to 10 years, Batman didn't know at Damian's age of 8 to 10 that he existed. It could mean that, oh, he found out that he existed in the first 8 to 10 years, but then he comes in 2 years later at, I don't know, 12 or something like that. By the way, we're going to talk about age in a little bit because that's a whole entire subject in of itself. But my point is, James Gunn has said, and Peter Safran, that there will be other extended Bat family in this movie because they feel like they've more or less been neglected to be shown on the theatrical screen for far too long. And guess what? I'm sure as many of you know, that makes sense. If Damian Wayne is coming in, that means Bruce in this iteration could have had a variety of Robins. If you want to go chronological, then yes, Dick Grayson, then Jason Todd, and so on and so forth. But I do want to stress at the same time, just because he's at Damian Wayne, and yes, we've had it confirmed that there are going to be other extended Bat family in the Brave and the Bold movie. We don't know how much or how many or how much screen time they'll feature, but that doesn't mean every ounce of it has to be adapted in a chronological way, if that makes sense. It could be that it's done a little bit differently, or for an extreme example, that Batman in this new DCU could have had only Dick Grayson and skipped way past Jason Todd and there's Damian Wayne. They might do Jason Todd for another time kind of thing. I'm just saying with adaptations, even though you can make it all kinds of accurate, you don't always have to like chronologically clone. There are a few ways that they can go about this. So first and foremost, yes, with Damian Wayne coming in, I do think that Nightwing is out there. Or at the very least, let's just put it this way. Dick Grayson has been this new DCU Batman's Robin for a minute. When asked if that means Dick Grayson would appear with his comments of extended Bat family being neglected too long, so they're going to appear in the Brave and the Bold, he was just like, yeah, maybe. He's going to be in this new DCU. And by the way, I think that he will be, no matter what, Dick Grayson, because I think, as we know, not all of Chapter 1, despite all of those titles being announced, not all of Chapter 1 has been announced yet. And if you didn't know already, there is only 2 chapters in this first 8 to 10 years. That's a bit fewer than what I thought. 2 overall, so we've had some projects and quite a few overall, including movies and TV series announced, with some more left to come in Chapter 1, and then to finish off the 8 to 10 years, there's another chapter, Chapter 2, with a bunch more projects, TV shows, and movies to be announced. And going back to my point now, I think Titans will be one of them. So what I have to ponder at this point is Robin Nightwing? Could be, but when Damian's coming into the Brave and the Bold movie, maybe Dick Grayson could still be Robin, but basically on the precipice of leaving or taking the mantle of Nightwing. I would probably lean more towards that. Before the events of the Brave and the Bold movie, not too long ago, Dick Grayson has been Nightwing for a short period of time. So he's not a veteran Nightwing or an adept Nightwing, but he's fairly adept in terms of just being trained and being a vigilante because he's been Robin for several years. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's already Nightwing. But when Jason, you have to factor in Jason, you could have had him already die in this universe and come up, done an Under the Red Hood thing, slightly redeemed himself, and he could be a part of like the anti-hero-esque Bat family side of things. But I think it'd be pretty cool to put a pin in that. So this new DCU Bruce has had Dick Grayson, he's gone from Robin to Nightwing, he's had Jason died, but maybe, just maybe, what I think would be really cool, going back to the putting the pin in it comment I just made, maybe he hasn't come back from death yet. Batman still doesn't know that Jason's ever gonna come back alive and come back as Red Hood. But in the meantime, hey, I have a son that maybe I found out about a couple of years ago that he's alive, but now Tally has just dropped him off at my doorstep, and he could be like 13, 14 or something like that. So given the slate that we already know, I do think it would be cool if James Gunn put a pin in the Red Hood aspect, with Red Hood not having returned, but for now, for all intents and purposes, Jason died. He's dead. It's been a very sad time in this DCU Batman's history, as per super traditionalist canon, and that leaves, a potential story for this Batman to face Red Hood with maybe Damian Wayne in the future, with obviously things getting in a better place for Damian and Batman by the end of the Brave and the Bold movie, and it wouldn't be anytime soon because we've seen a rough version of this slate, Superman Legacy, or should I say Creature Commandos, Waller, Superman Legacy, so on and so forth, Batman Brave and the Bold. Eventually we get Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, then Swamp Thing, and then there's still DCU chapter projects to be announced. Eventually, maybe in chapter 2, they could do a Red Hood story. And if they even want to incorporate that, because what we do need to entertain is what I said earlier. Maybe they've already been there and done that. Red Hood has come back, done his thing with Batman, and now they've reconciled and Jason's just managing his new life. That's going to be a tough one to figure out because I can imagine already James Gunn being more attracted to the idea of, okay, everything has happened already with Dick to Nightwing, with Jason to Red Hood, and we're now at a point in Batman's life where he is just focused on Robin being dropped off on his doorstep, or should I say Damian Wayne. But then you look at the other aspect and there is opportunity to basically do everything I just said except for Jason Todd. So Jason's died, but he just hasn't come back yet. That's something you can just save for a rainy day, for like a really cool story. Maybe you won't get to it, but maybe you eventually will. I don't know, but that would be a really cool, successful movie, I imagine. So overall, big ramble. Let me know what you think about what I had to spew about that. Could go either or. In conclusion, would lean towards Red Hood already being Red Hood and that reconciliation with Batman and Jason having already happened. It remains to be seen. So up next from Brutal Vengeance 267, thank you so much for the support on my channel recently. Just in case anyone doesn't realize, in the live streams recently, he's been sending crazy support, so I really appreciate that. And hey, if you didn't know already, I do go live on the channel mostly every Sunday, occasionally on a random weekday, but mostly Sundays if you want to catch me there. But anyway, Brutal Vengeance says, Boba, are you hoping that whoever directs Swamp Thing, that they will do more practical effects on the character? Obviously, they will use CG when he most likely uses his Vine powers, but I'm just curious. As always, stay awesome, pal. So Swamp Thing, I'm very passionate about this character. It was fantastic that DC Universe did such an interesting series about that. Before anyone says, oh, but that must have been rubbish, it got cancelled. It actually didn't get cancelled because of the quality of the show. It got cancelled before they even aired episode 1 because of some behind the scenes creative differences, and there's lots of taxi weird stuff going on there. The reason why I felt the need to already defend that before I even started speaking about it is because it is such a cool series. I'm not saying it's like the best written series in the world, but what I'm saying is the production design on that show was some of the best production I've probably ever seen in any superhero TV show or movie, because doing Swamp Thing practically, granted yes, when he used powers there was obviously CGI in there, but they brought Swamp Thing to life with a practical prosthetics and makeup and everything like that. And I would be disappointed if the Swamp Thing horror movie we get in the future, which I love, by the way, that's obviously going to be tonally R-rated. Could be wrong about that, but like, it's a horror movie, so you're really not going to make it at least R-rated. That if they didn't do practical Swamp Thing with prosthetics, then I'd be like, why wouldn't you? Because this isn't even a case of me just being like wanting to sacrifice the maybe more advanced looking realistic Swamp Thing in CG for just, oh, but look how cool and authentic it could be in practical. No, in Swamp Thing, the practical literally looked better than CGI. It's hard to explain it if you haven't seen it. Maybe I'm showing something on the screen, but if they don't go that route, then I think that would be a huge mistake. Now, if you didn't know already, James Mangold, who's directing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and he directed Logan amongst many other films, he tweeted out a picture of Swamp Thing, no caption at all. James Gunn liked it, so it does seem to be that he's a director in talks. Now, why wasn't he announced as the director? Maybe it's one of those situations where the dotted line wasn't signed, but he's making it very obvious that talks are going very well to secure him for, leading that movie. So that's very interesting, and I just really hope, if that all pans out, that he does go practical. That's something I just think they have proven works. And yeah, I can't wait for Swamp Thing. So expect major coverage on this channel, but Swamp Thing is quite a ways off in terms of the DCU slate, as in quite a few years and years away. So up next from My Getaway, you say, please do a deep dive on the Lanterns show. I am so happy they're finally prioritizing the Green Lanterns, and especially happy it's Hal and John. So as for a deep dive, without, I suppose, you saying anything specific to me right now, I don't know what really to say, or, we actually don't have too much information there, but the prospect of this show, with what James Gunn has said, really has me so excited, especially with how it actually could pertain to the larger, as in overall, core story of the DCU slate, like both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Because don't forget that James Gunn said in the reveal that Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan, and by the way, a few other Lanterns are in there, but it's a terrestrial-based TV show, like space cops watching over the Earth precinct side of things, and it's true detective influenced, which is super interesting. And what's so interesting about that is because of the final thing he said. In it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU. So the fact that Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan in this true detective style TV series, they're like the cops of, the Earth-based precinct of lantern things. They're kind of doing their thing detective-wise, and they stumble across something so terrifying, this terrifying mystery, that it's gonna ripple out in like all of the stories in this new DCU. So that tells me, for example, in like the early MCU, you didn't actually have like major connections in every single movie to the Infinity Saga level of things. Like quite often early on, for the first few projects, it was just kind of like a little end credit thing, but largely, like Iron Man 1, it's like, okay, this is Tony Stark revealing himself to the world, everything like that. Captain America, this is who he is. There was like little things in there. So what I'm trying to say is, before like fully embracing that, like the MCU didn't do other than very lightly tease it, and before they fully embraced it, quite a few projects down the line in their own Chapter 1 / Phase 1, Phase 2 and whatnot. The same thing here in the DCU. Don't expect like major things in like the first few projects, other than little teases. And I think one of the most prominent teases to this larger DCU story, with this incoming terrifying mystery that Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart unearth, is going to be in the Lanterns show. And I think that's so cool that we're going to see a true detective episodic thing on HBO Max with those two Lanterns. Sure, we might not know about it in episode 1, 2, or 3, but whatever this terrifying mystery that they pick up on by the end of the series, and when that ends, since it's going to be connected to the DC cinematic movie level universe canonical side of things, that spills over, and comic book fans, I guess more than the general audience, will be like, oh my god, does that mean like, is that like a hint for Blackest Night or something like that? Now, I'm not saying it will be that, but that's just a really rough example. Maybe they stumble across something like that level of things where it's like, oh damn, I know this isn't going to come to fruition now, similar to like seeing Thanos at the very early levels or entries into the MCU sitting on his throne, but they are cooking in the background. And the fact that Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan could be cottoning onto that, and sure, you have like Superman doing his own little Superman thing in Superman Legacy, and the Brave and the Bold, Batman and Damian Wayne, but it's all connected, just like how the early MCU movies had these other MCU stories where they were doing their own thing, but it all converged together through certain teases. And it looks like the Lanterns, with the true detective type thing, as James Gunn said, discovering a terrifying mystery. Oh man, I can't wait for that, because I think that's when we're going to get our true proper grains of truth, or teases if you will, with what could be coming our way with the overall threat. Because a lot of people are asking about that, and I think that will be maturing over a long period of time, as in a very long period of time, just like it should, because, you don't want to rush into things. Other than that, I don't have too much else to say, other than obviously the original HBO Max show. Again, it's kind of funny when you look back on it. It's not really funny, because I would have liked to have seen these things come to fruition, and one of them kind of is with what we're talking about. But with HBO Max, before it even released, we had all these shows announced, like Strange Adventures, and we had the Green Lantern Lanterns series with many, many Lanterns. And granted, James Gunn did say in this Lanterns series there would be a few more Lanterns in addition to Hal and John Stewart, but I think that's only going to be kind of liaising, like touching back with Base Camp kind of thing. It's mainly going to be Hal Jordan and John Stewart. That HBO Max show has been completely repurposed. Like, that's been scrapped now. And it's always been my theory, by the way. I don't know if they've kept anything on or any writers or anything, but it's basically been self-cannibalized and worked into the new DCU canon that we're having, because again, on the movie level to the TV show level, it's all connected. If you're playing Batman, you're playing Batman in the TV show, the movie, the animation if Batman appears in that, and the video game. So, massive interconnectivity. Professor Vertigo asks, do you think that James and Peter will keep Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman? She's one of my favorite characters of all time, and I'd love to see someone else take the mantle. I don't think we'll see any confirmation about Ezra or Momoa until their film's release. Zach, I'm pretty sure will stay as Shazam. What do you think? So I do agree with the latter of what you're saying in terms of no matter what. There has been some things said, and we'll go over those again in just a second. But with impending movies to release, such as Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, especially considering the controversy surrounding Ezra Miller's various reports in the past 2 years or whatever, no matter what, without any risk of damaging that product, even if you want to argue against that, saying, I'll still go see the movie, it still wouldn't be a great idea to say, no, we're not continuing on with Ezra Miller as The Flash in our new DCU. But that being said, you can't definitively, believe it or not, rule it out, because as James Gunn has quite literally said, I'm paraphrasing here in a quote, but we are continuing on with some of the old actors, we're not continuing on with some of the other old actors. Like, again, paraphrasing, but it was basically that. So it is a soft reboot, it is a broad reset, but not a blanket reset. Soft reboots can mean major changes. Look at Henry Cavill, that's a major change, we're getting a new Superman. But Viola Davis's Waller is still carrying on, and you can bet your ass that John Cena's Peacemaker, of whom is appearing in the DCU Chapter 1 Waller series with other Peacemaker team characters, probably Harcourt, Vigilante, and whatnot, are carrying on. So I think probably Zachary Levi's Shazam, as Zachary Levi said at least a month before this DCU reveal on Twitter, and I was wondering what that meant. He said to a fan who was concerned about Zachary maybe not playing Shazam anymore, that I'm all Gucci, man, don't believe everything you read on the internet, we're all good, or we're all Gucci. Then obviously, in some capacity, no matter what theory you may have, Momoa is working with James and Peter and David Zaslav again. He's literally thanked them very recently in another very hyped Jason Momoa video. And as James Gunn said here, there is no reason why all the people you mentioned couldn't be part of DC. We just haven't decided what the story that we want to tell that incorporates Shazam or Aquaman. And then, like, with regards to Sasha Kelly's Supergirl, they said they're still figuring it out. We just don't know yet. So the general consensus is, with the fact of knowing that literally, for a fact, we know that some DCEU legacy characters, if you will, are carrying on, the door has been left ajar for some of them to come in. But I still wouldn't place a firm bet on everyone coming in for a fact, because James Gunn, with the new Wonder Woman, he might have a new vision like he did for Superman. Like, Superman's a much younger Superman in this new DC universe. Sure, he doesn't have a new vision for every character. Like, clearly Viola Davis is still the same vision for Amanda Waller, but he could still have another vision for Wonder Woman. So it's a bit of a hard one to figure out. I'm 50-50 on it. Let me put it this way. I answer this quite frequently these days. There's some things that I truly feel 50-50 on, in terms of I wouldn't be surprised if Gal Gadot doesn't reprise a role as Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman's a big character, right? DC Trinity is something they want to capitalize on, especially in this new DCU. So we're going to have Wonder Woman pop up quite integrally, I imagine, in the first chapter, even though that hasn't been really stated outside maybe what you could theorize with regards to the Paradise Lost show, which is being described as this Themyscira Game of Thrones level show. One other, and this is complete speculation by the way, one other thing to consider is we have a new Superman. We have a new Batman, because Ben Affleck, it's kind of convenient for them, other than him having these mini roles in Shazam and the Flash movie. It's convenient that, Ben Affleck doesn't really want to be proper Batman, like he's not going to sign on to an 8 to 10 year multi-picture deal again, is he? So they've got a new Batman with the Brave and the Bold and Damian Wayne. So that's 2 of the Trinity. Is he really going to have Wonder Woman, who we've seen stand beside the previous Superman with Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck's Batman, with a new Superman and a new Batman? I think, now, I don't know, I'm not saying I've cracked it, but That's made me think that if you've already got 2 out of the 3 Trinity recasted, are you really going to have the previous casting of Wonder Woman standing right beside 2 new faces? That's going to almost feel weird knowing that we've seen her stand beside 2 other faces in previous movies. So I think, actually, my 50% has gone up to a 70% recasting. And I know some of you may be like, but really, Boba? But actually, I think that makes sense. He might just be like, look, in another world, maybe I would have kept you. It's nothing personal, but I've already recast 2 of the Trinity. I may as well do the same here, maybe. Let me know what you think. So up next from Anonymous asking, did they not touch on the Penguin series because it's already established, is moving forward, and is about to start filming, or just because it's part of DC Elseworlds? I was expecting a release date for the show since they released a few dates for films, including The Batman Part 2. Thanks for everything you do. So, believe it or not, this kind of what I was saying in the beginning of my video, there was a lot of nuggets of info that was not divulged in James Gunn's DC slate reveal video that was like 6 minutes long. Each major trade went to a mini private meeting with James Gunn, of which a photo has been leaked out about that, by the way. It was a little tiny room where they're talking to the press. They get some opportunities to ask back and forth on something. So for each one of their outlets, they can write something a little bit extra than what James Gunn said in the pre-recorded video that was uploaded to Twitter and YouTube and whatnot. And in that press details of several outlets, they did talk about the Penguin series very briefly. It's not a release date, but again, I do recommend my video uploaded yesterday or maybe the day before, depends on when you're watching this video, or maybe God knows how long in the future, in where I compile every bit of information like that, and I actually start off with the Batman Part 2 and the Penguin, so check it out. All right, so up next, I think I'm going to make it the last question. I do have some leftover screenshots, so I'll probably get into that in episode 2 of this new discussion series. But again, please remember to leave some questions down in the comments below, maybe expanding upon what we said today, or maybe something entirely new. So Christopher Young asks something that I've been getting a lot on the channel, and we kind of went into it a little bit earlier, but this isn't really a question, but more like something that you could look into. I feel like Damian Wayne being Robin is perfect for the main DCU. It means the Bat family is already set up and a part of this universe. They just haven't had their own stories announced yet. I think part of the reason James Gunn went with Damian Wayne was so that Matt Reeves could use a younger version of Dick Grayson for the Batman 2 or 3. That is a possibility. We spoke about this a little bit on my live stream yesterday. I think that you can't rule out that Matt Reeves will or won't have a Robin in his trilogy, just because there's going to be a Damian Wayne potential Robin. I mean, he's probably going to become Robin at some point in the movie, but for all intents and purposes, a Robin in the DCU, right? And what we know is that Matt Reeves met with James Gunn in January at some point, and he even said to some outlets saying it's all about air traffic control. So what that means is they are coordinating so both their Batman planes of ideas don't crash into each other, amongst, just talking and nerding out about what, the DCU is doing. Matt Reeves nerding out and saying to James Gunn, hey, this is what I'm planning for Chapter 2 and the Arkham series maybe and the Penguin series. But they wanted to not clone ideas for both their Batman characters, even if they're complete different takes on the characters. You still don't want to drown the audience with, oh look, Damian Wayne, are you doing Damian Wayne in the Batman Chapter 3 or something like that? So, just because Damian Wayne's being done in Brave and the Bold, that doesn't mean that Robin is off limits to Matt Reeves. But as I've always said, and I'll remain firm on this, I would be pleasantly surprised, in a way, but surprised being the key word, if Robin is in the Batman trilogy. However, I've always said if Robin is in this trilogy, it would most likely be reserved for the 3rd and final movie. At very best, you get a slight end credits, kind of, not really end credits, but final fade to black scene at the end of the Batman Chapter 2 with maybe the rope snapping at the flying Graysons, and Bruce is just kind of like staring at Dick, just crying, reminiscent of when he lost his own parents. And the fans will know exactly what that means, that Bruce is going to adopt that character. But that's the extent of it, by the way. Yes, it's speculation, but Robin, and I've gone into this so many times, is a whole other bag of discourse for will that really happen in the Reeves trilogy. I know so many people can see it happening. I can see Robert Pattinson standing beside a Robin. It's just, will it be done? Or technically, I do need to entertain the other side. The air traffic control could mean that, hey, Matt, do you actually mind not doing a Robin? And Matt could have been like, yeah, I actually don't mind. I actually wasn't really, I thought about it, but I don't think I was going to do that anyway, and the Robin is just being left to the DCU. Even though that might really piss off people, I don't know. We need to entertain everything, right? But yes, you can't rule it out or say it for sure that, Dick Grayson And it would be Dick, definitely, in the Reeves trilogy, if at all. So we're going to have to wait and see ultimately. But in terms of Damian Wayne's age, this is something that really intrigues me with regards to Bruce Wayne in the DCU. Because what James Gunn has said, as we briefly read out earlier, is that Superman, he's working, he's a reporter, he's at the Daily Planet. Again, we're coming into a world where superheroes exist and have existed. So does that mean Batman might be a couple of years older than Superman? Yes, it could be. Now, I think he's understating it when he says, does that mean that Batman could be a couple of years? So like a couple means 2, but like I think people exaggerate all the time when they say a couple. It could still mean like 4 to 6. People do that, right? So I think that is what's applicable with Batman here, because as we know, Superman is going to be a younger Superman, possibly even, and this is in the extreme ends in my opinion, as young as 25, but I'm hoping for like 27 to 29, maybe 28, whatever, right? But Batman, I think, is, as I've always said, going to be 35 to 37, but let's just go with James Gunn's literal words, a couple of years older. That would mean he's like 31-ish to 32. Then you have to think, okay, well, if Batman is that young, and Damian Wayne, and this is another factor we need to really consider here, is he actually going to be a 12-year-old-esque kind of kid in the movie? And by the way, I need to state this. If there's any live-action DC universe that would actually ever do a Kid Robin, because I know so many people are on both sides of the fence with this, saying, oh, that's just not really like, it's a comic thing that can't really be translated so well to live action, like a man vigilante actually having an 11-year-old kid go out as a vigilante. But if there's anyone that could do it, I think in a kick-ass hit girl kind of way, it would be James Gunn's DC universe. But even then, just to give a little bit of wiggle room, I do think it could still be a 16-year-old actor playing an aged down 13, 14-year-old. So let's just say, for hypothetical sake, Damian Wayne is 13 or 14 years old. Well, if Bruce was like 34 years old and Damian Wayne was even like 13 or 14, that means Talia and Bruce, they would have got pregnant when Bruce was like 20 or 21. Now, you could do it that way, but like the reason why I want to lay it all out like that is just to think of this broad spectrum of how to identify Batman's age. Now, I don't think Batman's going to be in his 40s. No way, no way. As James Gunn said, and I need to stress that I think he's understating it, he's probably going to be like a couple of years older than Superman. Superman's already a 20s Superman. It's no secret that he's going to be a younger Superman. So Batman is most likely going to be in his early 30s, so a little bit younger than what I thought, a little bit. I thought it'd be 35 to 37. That would actually match up perfectly for a 13, 14-year-old Damian Wayne, because if you subtract 13 or 14 years off of a 37-year-old Batman, that means Talia would have got pregnant when Bruce was like, I don't know, like 24 or something like that. But if Bruce is a little bit younger, like 32 or 33 or 34, that means Talia would have got pregnant when Bruce was like 20, 21. Now, it is possible, because when I was exploring this on the live stream trying to figure it out, maybe when Bruce left, because as he does sometimes, he leaves Gotham at 17 or 18 years old. So by the time he's like 21 or 22, he could have been training with the League of Assassins, right? Because he sometimes returns back to Gotham when he's 24, 25, amongst doing all these different activities. But let's just say he started the League of Assassins and he had already run into Talia at like a very young age of 21 and 22. And they had a romantic fling at a very young age, and he did not remotely think that she got pregnant. That would kind of actually make sense if you want to scale forward the timeline of let's just say Damian, just for like movie reality sake, even though I keep endorsing that James Gunn probably would do a hit girl type Damian Wayne in live action, I still think he'll be 13 or 14 years old. But if they do portray it in such a way that Bruce was still super young, maybe compared to traditional canon, that he was only like 21 whilst he was in the League of Shadows and got to know Talia there, and they had a bit of a romance, and he had no idea when he left and continued to study around the world, then returned to Gotham, and then spent another 12 to 14 years being Batman, that she got pregnant and he has a son. And then only in this movie he's like, wait, that happened when we were like 21? That could be the way it went down. Instead of him and Talia having a fling in like a much later period of time when he's like 26, 27, 28, because again, that would mean that Batman adding on 12 to 14 years on top of 28 years old would mean he's in his 40s. So the romance, if you want to call it that, between Talia and Bruce would have happened in their very, very early 20s, if you're still going to have a young Batman. And by all intents and purposes, when you look at what James Gunn is saying, he's going to be a couple or a few years older than Superman, and Superman could be as young as 25 to 28. So Yeah, I just wanted to ramble about my thoughts about Damian Wayne, because when you factor in how old Damian Wayne traditionally is, which is pretty damn young, usually like around 11, 12 years old, sometimes even 10 when he becomes Robin, but at other times when he's quite familiar with the Bat family, he can be like 14 years old. I think it's going to be set in the middle, 13, 14 years old, played by a 16-year-old actor who kind of looks like they're not 16, but around 13, 14. But again, subtract the 14 years off whatever rough age you're thinking, and then you have to think, okay, when realistically could Batman and Talia have actually had a romantic thing, maybe when Bruce was training? And so, yeah. But let me know what you think of that. Been rambling for quite a while about that one, but a lot of people are wondering about, okay, but how old is Damian actually going to be? Are they actually going to bring in a kid Damian? Okay, maybe there's going to be a compromise there where he's young, but he's kind of a teenager. But then you think, okay, well, how young did Bruce actually have Damian with Talia then? And all of that stuff, and how does that factor if you go back on it to Bruce's real age in present day? So, yeah, a lot of discussion today, guys. That is just the first episode of this discussion series. So if you want a chance for your question to be featured in the next video, please leave a comment down below. Can't wait to see what you have to say in terms of new ideas, but also expanding upon what we covered in today's video. And just really looking forward to read your takes on this new DC Universe Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. If you got this far, would really appreciate a like. Maybe consider subscribing if you enjoy this kind of content, because we do a lot of stuff like that here. If you got this far in the video, leave a hashtag with whatever comment you were going to leave anyway, just to prove you're one of the real ones. Hashtag brave and the bold. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.